Okay, so we're back with Christien, and in the second part, we're going to be talking about kind of what happened after he got to green code, in terms of the layover in Paris, flying to China, and quarantine in China. So basically, what happened when you arrived in your layover location in Paris? We've spoken a bit about the green code process already, but more just in general, sort of how did you spend the time, and what are your tips about the layover?
Yeah, so it was kind of chaos really when I first turned up in Paris. I thought, well, when I arrived about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and my test was around 5. So I thought I would go to the testing site early just to kind of know where I'm going, so there's no issues. And I had to get to gate K, and basically I scanned my boarding pass, and it would basically go and then caution. So that was a bit of a worry, but it seemed like it was happening to kind of a lot of people. So I think what the issue was, everyone who was flying to Guangzhou the next day, which is the flight I was taking, they were basically saying, no, don't come through because it was that busy. They were saying, come back in an hour. People were obviously panicking and thinking, I've got my test in half an hour or so. I need to go through. And, they were quite rude, the staff. You don't take it personally because it could be a cultural thing. It could be, who knows, you could catch one a bad day, but you just need to kind of get past it. So I was in the queue, and there was this girl who was just kind of stood on the side, and I thought, well, I better speak to her to ask her, what you do, why you stood there. And she basically said, oh, they told me I could stay here and then I could maybe be let in. So I just kind of decided to stay with her, and we got chatting, and she was going to Guangzhou. She was a Chinese local. And she was really important to get to know, because there was a few steps that I had to do that I didn't know. And because she spoke Chinese and read Chinese, she basically was like, oh yeah, they're telling you this, because they were doing announcements in Chinese. And she also helped when I got on the other side. So thankfully, me and her, because we waited, they actually let us through. So I got through, and actually I went straight to the testing center, and they tested me 3-4 hours early. So I would recommend, when you get there, just go down, because there was no one there, no passengers there. So yeah, go down and get it done early. They did say come back between 9 and 10 in the morning for your test. My flight was 2 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. But again, I went down early, around I think 6 o'clock, to pick up my documents. They do send you an email, which you can, I think you can just show them, but I wanted paperwork just to confirm everything. It was a 24-hour layover. I would highly recommend the hotel, because it's a stressful build up to get to Paris. There was a stressful time when I turned up. So to lay a head on a comfy bed, opposed to the airport floor, was really helpful for me. It is a little bit expensive, but I would say it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. So earlier you mentioned that there were some things that you got to find out because you were obviously talking to another passenger, which is a great tip and definitely highly recommended. But just in general, what were those things that maybe you found out through her?
Yeah, so she told me that we had to go up to I guess there wasn't really a check-in desk, but she basically said we have to go up to this station, and they were kind of stamping our boarding passes, and I didn't know that. I didn't get told about that. I didn't hear anything on the overhead system, but I think they did, but I must have missed it. But she was like, oh yeah, we have to get it stamped. That's where I asked for extra leg room, because I didn't really fancy sitting on an 11-hour flight, cooped up like that. But that's just another thing she would help with, because she knew with the submitting of my green code documents there, because it was all in Chinese as well, she would then kind of translate, and because she had her green code accepted the 4 hours, she would then just double check ours just to make sure we had it all right, and we did. So it's just handy to speak to someone, regardless of what nationality. But it's just so if they're going through the same thing, So they might know something you don't know, you might know something they don't know. So one thing I would like suggest, now I know it'll be so hard, but is just to try and relax as much as possible and just kind of like everything will work out. As much as it's going to be a stressful situation, you're not sure what's happening, just try and relax, speak to people, because they're more than willing to help, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's get to the flight itself, because we've spoken a little bit about this before, and it was interesting, some of the things you told me about it. So what stands out to you about the flight to China itself, the 11-hour flight?
Actually being in the airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of passengers were wearing full PPE, which was quite I guess a little bit of a shock. I guess it's good. They don't provide any hot food, anything like that. They literally just put a bag of, I guess, cookies, I think it was some milk, some apple juice for the whole flight. They take 3 temperature checks, one just before you get on the plane, halfway through, and then just at the end. I got quite cold on the flight, so that's probably something to keep in mind. Bring a jumper, maybe small jacket if you can fit it into your hand luggage, because yeah, it was quite cold. Other than that, it was a pretty straightforward flight. You have to wear your masks constantly. That's I guess another thing of going back to staying in a hotel. If you're in the room, you can take your mask off and you can kind of relax in your own company. But yeah, that was it with the flight. It was pretty straightforward. We probably, when we got to our destination, we probably had to sit in the plane for about 20 minutes while they were preparing ground staff or something like that. So that was quite tedious, especially spending 11 hours on the flight.
Okay, and then the final part in terms of after the flight, quarantine. You obviously had 2 parts of quarantine and sort of a third at the moment. But yeah, what's that been like, the quarantine?
Yeah, well, actually, just before I go on to that, I think it's quite important when I got off the plane.
Yeah.
And this is where my friend came in handy because she was going to the same place, luckily. In my mind, and everyone could have a different perception, but you kind of, when you go to an airport, you kind of, I don't know if you expect English translation and on signs and everything, and they did have that, but because this was, I guess, like a quarantine airport type thing, they had makeshift signs, and everything was in Chinese. There was no English translation. There was no staff who spoke English. So there was someone walking around with a QR code, just walking around, and I didn't have a clue what that was. So I spoke to my friend, she said, oh, you've got to scan it because you have to fill in like an entry document that basically says where you are. And when you come into the terminal, you took this piece of paper and it basically says you're in Guangzhou for 2 weeks. And they put a number at the top. So they called out numbers. They went from 0 to 100, please queue up. And in the queue, there was these people with computers, and I think you were taking temperature checks, filling out documents, and basically kind of telling them where you're going, pretty much. And you had to take a COVID test, which definitely was very uncomfortable. There's not a lot of care that goes into it. It's pretty much stick it there and move on. And this is the most daunting part for me, is once you've done through that, no one's really speaking English. They're just kind of like pointing at the sign, and you're just like, I don't really know. But you just kind of got to go with it and just kind of trust them, really. So you kind of follow through, and then eventually you get to baggage. You pick up your baggage, and then you kind of, again, no one's ushering you, but you just kind of head to the exit sign, and then you get taken away on a bus to the quarantine. So yeah, going to quarantine. What was your question? Sorry.
Yeah, so just actually to get back to the flight for a second, like in terms of this experience you described, one of the reasons I think for it was that you mentioned there was like 95% of the people on your flight were Chinese, right? Maybe that's sort of the background, sort of why they maybe didn't cater as much to English speakers.
Yeah, possibly. I guess, I don't know if they thought, well, who foreign-wise, who's going to come into China, because the borders are quite close, where it's difficult to get into China.
Yeah.
So that could be a reason, I guess.
Yeah, so just about quarantine, really. So you've had 2 weeks in Guangzhou, then you traveled to Wuhan. So let's talk about maybe the first part of quarantine, especially. Like, what was it like, and what are your key tips for people, looking to do quarantine in China?
Yeah, so it was kind of straightforward. There was a bit of I say issue. There was a small issue when I got there. You get taken away, and then you come off the bus, and then they're spraying you down with disinfectant or something and spraying it everywhere. And then you take temperature checks. So I got off the bus and I went kind of round the back to get my luggage, which 30 kg is pretty heavy. So I'm lugging it off, and they take my temp, and I'm too hot. I'm 37 something. Bearing in mind it's 36 degrees outside, and I'm sweating. I'm really hot. So again, that language barrier is a bit difficult. My friend is trying to say, look, it's really hot outside. That's why his temperature's high. But they kind of didn't listen, and they told me just to kind of stand at the side. And I'm trying to tell them that I'm not going to cool down. I'm literally stood outside still. I'm still going to be that same temp, and they come back trying to check my temp, and still it wasn't dropping. And I'm starting to get a bit worried, thinking, oh God, are they going to send me back to the airport and fly me back to the UK? But time passed, and they let me sit inside, which then they seem to didn't want me to, because I guess they're being careful. But the girl probably took my temperature probably 6-7 times, and it wasn't coming down. And she actually come over to the final time, put the gun to my head. It was like, okay, good. And I knew she was like lying, but she sent me on my way to my room. About half an hour later, once I cooled down, she come back up and she took my temp, and I was fine. So if you're in this situation when you get there, just try to be calm. As I said, it all worked out. As much as you get into that stressful situation, it all worked out in the end. Download Pleco, which is the Chinese dictionary app. That's a really good app to have, because you can try to speak to them if you know a little bit. So yeah, it was straightforward from there. Again, my friend kind of told me what was happening in terms of the meals. Can we order? So she said, you have two options. You can pay, I think it was 100 RMB a day for 3 meals a day, or you can order your own food. So I did a bit of both, really. I had the hotel food they provided, and it's if you're adventurous and you're willing to try anything, it's great. Go for it. If you're very safe and you don't want to, eat anything outside your comfort zone, then order. Because although I ate most of the food given to me, there was times that I think they gave me pork trotter, pig's blood, and chicken feet, which I tried all of them, and they were okay. But it was quite a bit like, oh, that's pushing my taste buds. So yeah, that was pretty much the process of getting to the quarantine. So it was relatively straightforward.
So food-wise, is the alternative is ordering individual items, right? Like from a menu, and is that pretty accessible in English, would you say, or?
So the alternate was basically takeaway. So you can order, just like here, you takeaway food from. Used WeChat, and the app inside was called, I'm going to butcher this, Meituan, I think. So that app is all in Chinese. So it's a little bit difficult to order. I basically got the app on my iPad, used WeChat translation, and basically held it over and translated it through there. You have to put everything in Chinese for the location to come up, because there was a few issues in terms of just putting the English address in, because it wouldn't pick it up. But the hotel were really, really helpful. They were saying, oh, we can order it for you, and you can then pay us at the end. They gave us a QR code for the payment of the stay, for the duration of the stay, which you could pay through there. My school paid for that, which made it really easy. I guess other ways of payment is if you maybe a credit card, if they accept international credit cards, that can help. Because I put my credit card on WeChat, which helped me buy stuff in. So that was helpful. But yeah, that's something you want to think about is when you are there, the only way you're going to be able to buy things if you don't have a credit card is cash. And sometimes takeaway places don't accept cash. It's all over online. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so maybe as a final question, like the second part of your quarantine in Wuhan, because you told me that was quite different, sort of how in the day-to-day and how it felt. And also, can you talk a little bit about things to bring or stuff you find useful, especially in the Wuhan part?
Yeah, sure. So there was, it always changes. Before I got to Wuhan, it was kind of like, oh, so you're probably going to do a 7-day hotel quarantine and then a 7-day apartment self-isolation. They don't really know until you turn up at the airport and they actually tell you, yeah, it's 2 weeks in a hotel. So yes, 2 weeks in Wuhan, I couldn't order any hot food. The only thing you could order would be, like, I guess those instant noodles, fruit, everything like that. But yeah, no meals basically. In terms of what to bring to keep yourself busy, definitely streaming network site, Netflix, something like that. I brought my PlayStation, which helped me out loads. If you are going to bring a console or anything, I would recommend bringing an Ethernet cable. Because the Wi-Fi is terrible. Like you'll be trying to surf the net or watch a YouTube video, 5 minutes, it would buffer, internet would drop, it just wasn't great. If you're lucky, your school could buy you a mobile router, excuse me, which is basically, they put data on this mobile router. Let me quickly get it. And it's simply as it's just a USB. So my school bought this for me. They put 50 gig of data on a day. You literally just plug it into a USB port, and then you connect to it just like I guess a hotspot, just like a Wi-Fi hotspot. And then that is so much better than using the hotel Wi-Fi. So if you are lucky, speak to your school about trying to get one of these. This one cost 180 RMB, so not expensive, and it's definitely worth it because you'll just go insane trying to fight with the internet at the hotel.
So the 180 RMB, that was for multiple days data, right?
This was for yeah, actually, sorry. So it was 170 for the device.
Okay. And
then I think it was another 175 for the month, and you get 50 gig a day. Yeah. 1,500, I think. For the month. So yeah, I would definitely recommend. You might get lucky. Hotel could be fantastic. But I would, when I would play my PlayStation, even with this, I would plug the Ethernet cable into the port because it's just a secure network or connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Christien, for all the information. It's really, really helpful. And just find like what are you looking forward to doing the most? Like once you'll be properly out in China, like what's the thing you want to do the most?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and it's kind of hard to kind of say, but I just kind of, I think, start working because I don't know anyone around here. So it's going to be quite difficult to meet people. But I think once I get to work and, I start meeting other teachers, and then hopefully I can meet maybe some of their friends. So just kind of getting going and just getting back into the swing of like real life work, I guess. And finding some really nice food places.
Yeah, well, there's loads of those in Wuhan for sure. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Christien. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.